Ready?
Let's do it.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the first episode of the Kocsis Sports Podcast, episode one. I'm your host, Christian Kocsis. I'm joined here by my guest, Jake Standard. This podcast is being recorded on Streamlabs Ultra. If you guys want to sign up and start, streaming, making your own podcast, making your own videos, go ahead and sign up in Streamlabs Ultra. There's going to be a link down in the description. So let's get right into it. Jake, if you do want to introduce yourself a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm Jake Standard. I'm good friends with Christian. We grew up together, and we're both just sports fanatics. So recently, both been getting into watching golf and UFC. So we're excited to hop on this podcast and give our insight into these upcoming fights and the tournaments and whatnot.
Awesome. Yep. And like I said, my name is Christian Kocsis, huge sports fan. The podcast is going to be spanning over multiple different sports. We're going to be covering football, golf, UFC. We're going to be covering NBA once the season gets a little closer. The schedule is going to be kind of set. So Tuesdays, I'm going to be with Cash, Tampa. Wednesdays, I'm going to be with Jake Standard. And then the rest of the week, the rest of the episodes, I'm going to either be solo or be joined by another guest, or we might have Jake or Cash on again sometime. So let's kick things off. Big event last week. The PGA, the Tour Championship, FedEx Cup Tour Championship. Victor Hovland got the huge win. He was really on fire at the end of the season. Massive payday, $18 million bonus, like biggest event of the year, like super large. Like you can say like, oh, I won all these majors like as a golfer, but like if you win the Tour Championship, like it's a lot of money. Like Rory McIlroy has won it 3 times, I think. Like he's gotten a lot of money. Like that's where a big portion of his like career earnings have come from. He's won it 3 times. So Victor Hovland actually became the 3rd youngest Tour Championship winner, and huge things are going to come for this guy. Like he's so young and has so much potential, and he's been playing so well this year. He has more top 25 finishes than Scotty Scheffler this year, which is kind of crazy to believe. And he has more wins than Scotty Scheffler, number 1 ranked golfer in the world. And we'll get into that a little bit as to why he's not, Scotty Scheffler is not really winning a lot of events. But just to kind of recap some of the key stats. So we're going to kind of go over some strokes gained stats, which basically, if you don't know what strokes gained is, it's just kind of the strokes gained that the strokes that you gain on your peers in that event, in a given event. So the competitive edge that you're getting over everybody else in that tournament. So he actually finished the week with 4th in strokes gained putting. Huge. Strokes gained putting is one of the most important stats. 11th in strokes gained around the green. So even when he didn't stick the green on approach, he was cleaning it up. He was scrambling well. He was chipping phenomenally. 5th in strokes gained on approach. So he was hitting the green a lot. 1st in strokes gained off the tee. That's huge, very important. Usually that's kind of where Rory sits really well. He just broke the tour record actually this year for driving distance. I don't know if you saw that, with 326.1 or 326.3 yards average drive. That's where Rory makes all his money, is off the tee. 1st in strokes gained tee to green for Hovland as well, and he was tied for 1st in strokes gained total with Xander Schauffele, who had a massive round. Like imagine being paired with Victor, who ended up winning as Xander, and shooting a 62 on the last day and losing by 5 strokes to some because they shot a 63. Yeah. Like it's absolutely crazy. Like what are your thoughts on Victor and like Xander doing so well but just losing because he was playing against somebody who put on one of the best performances in Tour Championship history?
Absolutely 2 phenomenal rounds by both players, and coming into that last round, it kind of being a close match. Relatively, Xander coming in with the heat, and keeping that torch under Hovland. I think I actually helped Hovland play even better on that last final round. But like you said, they both just had absolutely phenomenal rounds. And I mean, Hovland was someone that just kind of flew under my radar for most of the season. And then all of a sudden he's out here popping 2 wins and winning the FedEx. I mean, it's super impressive.
Yeah, to touch on, yeah, he was floating under my radar too. You know, being a new golfer, getting into golf, you know, over this past year plus. Um, the first time that I actually heard Victor Hovland's name kind of and took him a little serious was when we went to the Players Championship here in town in Jacksonville, and we were talking to that guy outside of the gift shop, and he was like, "Oh, you know, yeah, I'm going for my boy Victor Hovland," and I was like, "Victor Hovland, okay." So then I started to kind of look into him, and he did really well, and I was like, "Okay, like he's a golfer on my radar." And as the season progressed, like I'm like, "Okay, he's not just a golfer on my radar; he's like a top 10 golfer in the world." And
Oh, yeah.
he's in his mid 20s, so he's only a couple years a year older than us, which is crazy to think. And to touch on what you said too about Xander playing so well, propelling Victor's final round. I think it really did. I was listening to a podcast earlier where Victor actually was giving an interview about the final round and about being paired with Xander and both of them shooting, having such phenomenal rounds. And he was talking about, going into the day and after Saturday, he was really in the mindset like, okay, I just got to get a bunch of pars. I got to play it safe. And this tournament's probably mine because I have a 6-stroke lead, which is a absolutely massive lead for one day in a golf tournament. Like, so he was, stepping on the tee. Hole one, his mindset was, okay, let's par every hole, get a couple birdies, stay, bogey free, keep the mistakes at a minimum. And then Xander comes out, drops some birdies early, misses a short birdie putt, but then drains two absolutely long birdie putts, hooking quite crazy birdie putts, in a row almost. And Victor is like, said he's thinking to himself, like, okay, is this guy like ever going to stop? Like, I got to turn on the fire now. Like, I got to start getting aggressive. So it definitely propelled him to, playing better. But if a lot of golfers crumble in that situation, like a lot of golfers will go in with a one mindset, something happens and they need to switch on the fly and they just mentally, they just don't have it or, whatever it is, kind of like Scotty Scheffler. Like he's the next guy on my, that I want to talk about. And he, for whatever reason, has this block where when he steps on the green, he forgets how to use his hands. Like he doesn't know how to play golf. Like he doesn't know how to use his putter anymore. Like I don't know, like I don't know if you want to touch on this at all, but like he was dead last in strokes gained putting this weekend. Like,
Yeah, and I mean, if you want to do well in a tournament, you got to have a good putting day. You can't, because at the end of the day, putting wins you tournaments.
yeah, like you can be the best ball striker you want to be, right? Like he broke so many records this year and did so well ball striking, right? Like he was one of the best ball strikers and had one of the best ball striking seasons we've ever seen in the PGA. Probably since Tiger, in terms of strokes gained, on approach, off the tee, just hitting the ball from outside of that 50-yard range, pretty much from anywhere on the course. He was one of the best ever. But as soon as he got on the green, he didn't know what to do. Like he was 150th out of 181 golfers on the tour this year in strokes gained putting, and he only won 2 events. That is directly correlated. Like that's the reason. Like he won as many events in the regular season as Matt Fitzpatrick. And how many times did you see Matt Fitzpatrick up in the top 10 this year, like you saw Scotty Scheffler? Like you never saw Matt Fitzpatrick doing well except for a few events. They had the same amount of wins. And it's just crazy to me. Like, I mean, he's got to obviously be working on it, right? He's a professional golfer. He knows that that's where his weakness is. But it's like, I just don't know how much longer he can go like this. Because if he can get his putting down and he can get, even to average putting in the PGA Tour, he's going to win 4-5 events in a year. Like he's going to be the runaway golfer of the year. And now because, there was a point where he was the golfer of the year. And now because he's gone this long putting so bad and not winning, now it's probably going to be Hovland, like just given his play in the last little bit. Like it was Rahm at the beginning of the season, who he was lighting it up, getting a bunch of wins. Then it was Scheffler for a while, and he was the number one golfer, all these top 10 finishes, no wins, you know, choked on a lot of tournaments. Tried to come back on a lot of tournaments, but just didn't have the putting. And then now Hovland, who is the complete package almost. Like he's got power, he's got precision, he's got putting, he's got short game. Like he's the perfect face for the PGA Tour too. Like he's so friendly and happy, and everybody loves him, and nobody. It's impossible to dislike the guy. Like if you were the PGA Tour commissioner and president, like would you? Who is there a golfer that you would rather have as the face of your league than Victor Hovland right now?
No, not at all. Yeah, I mean, you touched on it exactly. He's just got that friendly personality, and just his look in general is just very friendly, approachable, and he's a great guy on the mic, and he's absolutely phenomenal on the course. I mean, like I
Yeah,
said, Scheffler's going to be choking these tournaments from the putting, and you got this guy that now just got back-to-back wins. Great personality. Like, I don't know, he's shaping up to be a better prospect for the future, in my opinion.
yeah. No, I completely agree. And he was asked. I don't know if you saw. He was asked by the media, like, "Hey, you just got this huge payday. Like, are you excited? What's your big purchase? What are you going to do?" And he said, I live in Stillwater, Oklahoma. Money goes a long way. Like, I don't need a lot. Like, he's such a humble guy. Like, it's hard to not like him, right? Like, it's different. Like, if you had a guy
How
like
much money was it that he just got in
18
8
million.
days? 18 million in 8 days?
No, he got more than
Between the
18.
two, it was like 30,
It
30
was
something,
it
right?
was 20
31?
20 something. He got 33 on the year, and I think he between like the 8 day span he got like close to 25 million or 23 million or something like that. So I mean, 8 days he won like 23 25 million dollars, and the
I
guy's
mean,
like, whatever. Like money's cool, but it's not everything.
yeah, I mean, that shows how much that he's just dedicated to being the best out there on the course, and the money is nice when it comes in, of course, but his sole purpose of being out there is to play some good golf.
Yeah, and he's out there to he's having fun too. Like he was that same interview I was listening to. He talked about that he's on break right now, but he's going to go play golf with his buddies this afternoon. Like so, he's not just out there, as a job and 9 to 5. Like he's just that's all he's there for. He actually enjoys it. He's going to play with his friends. Like he does it in his spare time as well. Like so, in order to really be a great, you have to be consumed by anything you're
I love
doing.
it.
And great in anything. You have to be consumed. You have to love it. You have to enjoy what you're doing. You have to want to get better, and you can't be focused on things like the money. Um, which if somebody like Dustin Johnson or Brooks Koepka got up on the mic after winning the tour championship, they might have had a different answer than Victor going, I don't need the
Possibly.
money. um, so the last golfer I want to talk about from this tour championship this past weekend, tied for sixth, same position as Scotty Scheffler, Tommy Fleetwood. Is he ever going to win an event? Like he is top five all time in the PGA Tour in earnings, with
Uh,
over $20 million earnings in his career, and zero wins. He was 13th in strokes gained putting, 11th in strokes gained on approach, 17th in strokes gained around the green, ninth off the tee, 10th tee to green, and 10th total. Like he's like a jack of all trades every year. Like it seems like he plays well. He was the number one scrambler this year on tour. Like so when he wasn't getting on the green, he was setting himself up for good putts after, like chipping back on the green, hitting good bunker shots. I mean, the guy, every time I look at the leaderboard, almost it seems like I see him in the top 10, 15, 25. Like he's there. What does he need to do to take that next step? Like, does he just not have the confidence? Like, is he going to win? Like, if he keeps playing at this pace, it's hard for me not to see him winning an event or two next year.
you'd almost feel like he's due for a win with how many events he's playing and making the cuts. 21 events played, 18 cuts made, 13 in the top 25. ninth in
Yeah,
the top 10, and he has a runner-up. You think that, soon enough, he's just based off statistics, he should be getting a win at one of these tournaments.
yeah, no, I completely agree, and I think he's a golfer that I want to look at. I want to make sure to not forget to look for next year in these events to see where he's placing. To root for him. I hope he gets a win. That would be
Yep.
awesome. But if he can string together a win, then he'll know what it's like and know what it takes to win.
Yeah,
And I
I'm a
think,
little.
yeah,
I feel like maybe once he gets a win, maybe that would be kind of the catalyst for him to start pulling out some more consistency around getting some dubs. I
yeah,
don't know.
yeah. That's
I
my
feel like
exact thoughts.
once you get that win for the first time, you kind of have that familiarity with what it means to win and how you do that. So, I mean, best of luck to Fleetwood. I think we'll see him getting a win
Yeah,
soon.
no, that's exactly what I was thinking. Like once he wins, he's going to know what it feels like. He's going to know what it takes to get there. He's going to know what mentality you have to have going into Championship Sunday, like coming down those final few holes, what you have to do. You mentioned he had a runner up. Like, maybe he, wins and he's like, oh, I should have done this different. Now he knows what to do and now he knows how to approach these things. So, like you said, he gets one win, then he gets two, then he gets three. I don't know, but he's just been playing so well for so long that he's definitely just due for a win, and I'm rooting for the guy, and I hope he does. Obviously he's not hurting for change. He's made over 20 million, but you'd like to see the guy get a win or two. At least on the
Yeah,
tour and many more. He's still relatively young for a tour player. Um,
for
so
sure.
Ryder Cup. Let's talk about the Ryder Cup. What do you think about the Ryder Cup selections? Is there any that stand out to you as questionable? Is there any golfers that you would think that come to mind that didn't get picked that you think maybe deserve to get picked over some of these guys? And if so, who are they?
Okay, so I mean, I think one thing that stands out that a lot of people would possibly agree, Justin Thomas. We can bring that up. I think
Okay.
he's had a tough year.
Yeah, you missed the FedEx Cup playoffs entirely.
Yeah, he's had a tough year, and it's a little bit questionable in terms of how he's been playing. But I think in terms of his camaraderie with the group of players, and I mean, JT knows how to play golf, and he is a phenomenal golfer. And I don't think you can sit there and question that. So when there's speculation as to why JT is a part of the team, I just think it really has to do with his connection with the group of players that are also on that, and he is a great golfer.
Oh yeah, no, I completely agree. Like his, I mean, the first thing in my notes is it was this deserved. He missed the FedEx Cup playoffs. He didn't play well this year. Like I don't even know did he. I don't even remember if he got a win. Like he didn't. He just was not great this year. This was one of his worst years of his career. But I think Zach Johnson, Ryder Cup team captain, said it best. You just don't leave JT at home. Like he
Yeah,
is such a good leader. Like he is he leads with his emotions. He fires the guys up. He gets the crowd going. Like he's a fan favorite. He's a golfer favorite. He's one of the more liked golfers in the PGA. Like you could even see it whenever he got hot mic'd. Whenever he was playing with Wyndham Clark, and who won the U.S. Open. And the next week, Wyndham asked him to move his ball, to mark his ball from like 80 yards out when he was chipping up on the green. And Thomas says, "Oh, he wins one U.S. Open and one fucking U.S. Open. And I got to mark my ball from 80 yards now. Like, oh, big shot. Like, so you can see like he's got a personality. He's fiery. He leads with his emotions. Like, I think that's
right.
very important for a team. Team event like this. You're not just grabbing cherry picking the top six golfers. Like, right, you have to kind of balance out personalities and do these golfers mesh well with each other and who's playing good, but then also who can, get the best out of everybody around them. And I think that's what Justin Thomas,
Yeah,
definitely does.
for sure. I mean, the team matches are different altogether than these individual tournaments as well. And the him and Spieth just have such a great connection too. just that alone.
Oh yeah, Ricky
Um,
Fowler too. He got selected. I don't
oh
know if
yeah,
you.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if
and
you want to
Ricky
talk about him
Ball.
next.
I think Ricky. I mean, like he had a slow start to the season, but I think he really pulled through towards the end and absolutely deserving to
Yeah.
be there.
So Ricky, for me, is one of the golfers that were picked that I'm not so sure like needed to be picked. Ricky is obviously very close with Spieth and Thomas. Yes, he has that camaraderie. He's very loved by all the golfers in the PGA. Um, but yes, he played good for a few tournament stretch. Kind of tailored off a little bit towards the end. But in my opinion, this spot particularly, you're already filling this, his kind of role with Justin Thomas and even, Spieth even. Um, I think they should have gone with Bryson DeChambeau, Keegan Bradley, or Cam Young in this spot. Like Keegan Bradley or Bryson especially. Those are the two guys I'm most surprised got left off this. Bryson not so much because he's on the live, right?
Mhm.
Brooks got picked because Brooks is a baller, right? He's so good. But Bryson shot a 58 the other day. He's playing lights out recently. Like he's one of the best golfers in the world still. Like he's finding himself again. Like,
A lot of
how
people forget that he
a lot of
is.
people forget that. He's one of the best golfers in the world. He's finding his rhythm again like he did a few years ago for that stretch of time where he was so dominant on the PGA Tour. He's finding himself again. And I think he would have been perfect, you know, even somebody like Dustin Johnson, honestly, I think would have been better than Ricky Fowler here. Like Dustin Johnson's been playing good. Like Dustin Johnson was 5-0 in his matches at the Ryder Cup last time he was in it. Like it's so there's a couple. I don't blame Zach Johnson, but I just wish maybe another one of these guys were picked there. And I don't know if you want to touch on that or if one of these
Well,
guys stands out to you more
I
than
was
others.
going to bring out Cam Young. I did also think that he could have been in the likes of this group. But, all these guys are interchangeable to me. I think any of them could have been in this list,
Yeah,
and, they all will play great. I don't, it's hard to say who, I don't know. I feel like this is probably the squad that I would end up. Maybe you're kind of convincing me of the Shambo now.
yeah, yeah.
But
DeChambeau needs some conversation. I don't see many people online talking about him, right? Like
I do. The thought does entice me to put him a part of that group. I actually would be very entertained to watch that. But
Yeah, I see a lot of people talking about Keegan Bradley and Cam Young. Should they replace Sam Burns, which is the next golfer on my list that I don't think. I think Keegan Bradley, Sam Burns, DeChambeau, those guys should have replaced Sam Burns as well. Like, I mean, I think
yeah,
that group of three golfers I just named can replace. You could take any two of them and swap them out with Ricky and Sam Burns, and I think at the end of the day, your team's stronger, your camaraderie is stronger, and you have a better chance to go in and win, right? Like the Ryder Cup is going to be a challenge, right? Like it's not just they're not just playing against a bunch of schmucks. They're playing against Victor Hovland. They're playing against Rory. Like they're playing
yeah,
against some of the best golfers in the
yeah.
world. Like Rory's top 5 right now. Victor's, probably top 2 or 3 right now. He's probably top 2, but I would say maybe behind only Scheffler. But I'm hesitant to even say Scheffler is the number 1 in the world right now, just because he's his putting struggles. Like for a very long time he was, but you know Sam Burns, that guy, him and Ricky are kind of interchangeable to me in terms of you can replace them and the team
I
would be
agree.
better off.
I agree.
Um, but I mean, as far as the rest of the picks, Brooks Koepka, I am so happy he got picked. There was so much drama on the internet about, is Brooks going to get picked? Does Brooks deserve to get picked? Like, do the live guys deserve a chance to be in the Ryder Cup? Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely. Like what the business decision he made has no bearing on his performance as a golfer. And I
you're
mean,
trying to
tied for
get.
second at the Masters in Augusta, won the PGA Championship at Oak Hill, 17th at the U.S. Open, LA Country Club. Like, dude proves he belongs in the conversation amongst the top golfers in the world. And I'm glad that they put the politics aside and the drama aside. And Zach Johnson said, this guy needs to be on this team.
I mean, it'd be silly to not include him. I mean, he's he's the best in the squad.
Yeah, yeah, he is the
So
best out of the six golfers, the captain's choices. He's definitely the best, and he's honestly probably one of the top three guys on the whole,
yeah,
the whole Ryder Cup roster. He didn't make the automatic qualifying top six, but he's one of the best guys on the actual,
I mean, any
the
given
roster as a
day he could
whole.
be the one that's shooting the best for sure, and
Yeah,
I would
and
be betting on him to do it.
yeah, he could go out and he could shoot lights out and be the best on the team and lead by example. Like, I mean, he's such a fiery competitor, and he's like, I mean, he's so entertaining to watch that I'm really glad he got picked. This Ryder Cup is going to be very interesting, and I'm so excited to watch it. And this is going to be the first Ryder Cup I've actually sat down and gotten to watch as a golf fan, and I'm ecstatic. I haven't been this excited for an event all year, to be honest. Like the Masters is cool, U.S. Open's cool. Tour Championship's cool. Like all these events are awesome. Like we like I said, we went to the Players right here in
Yeah.
town. That was awesome to go watch. Um, the day that we were going to follow John Rahm's group, and he pulled out because he was sick. That was awesome.
Yeah,
But like I said, but this is the most excited I've been to watch an event. Like to just sit down and just for however long it is, just sit down and watch these guys like go at it with the Europeans. Like the fact that some of the best golfers from the PGA are going over and competing against us, like it just makes it so interesting, and so like the dynamic is so awesome to me.
yeah, and there's something about team events, it just kind of brings a new feeling of energy towards the sport and excitement towards see how well they'll do, especially when it comes to carefully selecting specific players.
Yeah, and
Definitely,
anything that your country's stamp is on, right? Like the World Cup and all
sure.
sorts of stuff. You automatically like I've never watched the basketball World Cup or whatever it's called until recently, but even that's more interesting to me. And I'm rooting for Team USA over some of these other teams with players that I like Giannis and Greece. I'm like, oh yeah, let's go because I mean it's USA. I mean it's you
Yep.
got to root for them. Next golfer up on the list, Jordan Spieth. I think he absolutely deserves this. He's been very inconsistent, and he hasn't played. This hasn't been his great season, but when Jordan Spieth is playing at the top of his game and he's on and he's firing on all cylinders, there's only a small handful of golfers that can actually go toe to toe with him and beat him. He's not the most consistent. That's probably Scheffler. Scheffler is probably the most consistent. But
Mhm.
outside of Jordan Spieth, maybe the only other golfer that comes to mind kind of like him is John Rahm, where he's so like John Rahm in the sense that at any given time he can just take over an event. Like he could just play
Yep.
so good and nobody can match him. And it's not up to anybody else it's all up to him. When he starts playing like that, there's nothing you could do. You just have to. Well, I mean, you can go out and get 4 or 5 birdies, play perfect, shoot a 5 under, and he's still smoking you up and down the course when he's on.
Yeah. No, for sure. Like you said, he's had a pretty inconsistent year in terms of jumping around on the leaderboards. But I 100% agree. When he's on, he is on. Like there is no just average round for him. He is firing in all cylinders, and it's very, very entertaining to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like he's either up at the top of the leaderboard or he's missing the cut, right? Like,
Yeah,
or
that's what it feels like.
he's struggling to make the cut, like almost like Justin Thomas in the sense
Hmm.
that they're very similar in the sense that when they're both on their game, they are on their game. They play
You
like the
don't
number
want to
one
be
golfer.
facing them.
Yeah, you don't want to be facing Justin Thomas when he's on. You don't want to be facing Spieth when he's on. Like these guys are killers and they are coming to win, but
And they're familiar with winning too.
yeah, they know what
They
it's like to win
they
major
know what it's like to
championships.
win. They that's nothing new to them, and they're having slight off season, but there's always the opportunity to bounce back from that. And like we said, at any given day, these guys are on fire.
Yeah.
So
And somebody who rarely, in my mind, at least, when I'm paying attention to the leaderboards since I started watching golf, this guy who rarely has bad days, maybe not has good days very much either, but rarely has bad days is Colin Morikawa, who's the last golfer that was selected that I want to talk about. I mean,
Yeah.
this guy is one of the best golfers in the world all around, just jack of all trades. He's a great ball striker. He's a phenomenal putter. Like he's a great, great off the tee, great around the greens. He's a phenomenal player. Maybe he's not winning as much as he should be. He's maybe in the conversation of somebody like Scotty Scheffler, who's, he's not quite as good as Scotty, and he's not as good of a ball striker as Scotty. But somebody who's very consistent, very good, playing at such a high level for so long, maybe not racking up as many wins as they should or they would like to.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I feel like whenever I'm paying attention to the leaderboard for these events, I always see Morikawa on that list, and the top 10, top 25, somewhere in there I see his name almost every time.
Yeah, he's
But
he's always right up there. He's always in the top 10, top 20. Like he's always making money. Right? He's always placing well, but he's just not winning as much
kind of
as much as
similar
he should.
to Fleetwood, and since he hasn't gotten that win that he this season, he has 2 runner-ups this
Yeah,
season, 6 top 10s, 11 top 25s, 18 cuts made. He has missed 6 cuts, but I mean,
yeah. It's very
that's
similar stats. Very similar season. He's very consistent. Plays very well. 2 runner-ups. I mean, that's challenging, right? 1 runner-up
yeah.
is hard. A lot of golfers would take that. 2 runner-ups. I mean, that's
Oh,
a good season. But like for his standards, he's so good that 2
oh yeah.
runner-ups probably keeps him awake at night, right? He's probably like, oh my god, I should have at least won one of those events.
Mm-hmm.
And there's probably
Now
a handful of
the
shots that he still remembers that he thinks about. That's like I should have played this draw instead of a high fade or whatever it is.
100%. I mean, these guys, like we've been saying, these guys, the money's nice. It's awesome when it comes in. But at the end of the day, they're here to win. They're here to be the best golfer. And I guarantee you that when they get a runner-up, they don't sit there and gloat about that rather than paying attention to what they could have done better.
Oh yeah, no. If you come across a PGA pro that's bragging about how many runner-ups he has, I mean he's probably not a pro for very long. I mean these guys are so the difference between 100 and 50th ranked guy on tour and the number 1 guy on tour is, I mean there's some mechanical differences, right, in the way they strike the ball, the way they putt, the way they play, physically, but that's so small compared to the amount of mental difference. The mental difference
Hmm.
is what makes these guys at the top different from these guys down towards the middle to the bottom. Like, I mean, these guys are so mentally strong and just know how to approach the game at the top. And that's the difference really right there.
For sure.
But all right, so huge pivot now, right? I have the golf hat on, the UFC shirt on, so huge pivot. So we're going to start talking about the UFC now. Um, Fight Night coming up this weekend in Paris. You got Paris's best fighter Cyril Gane taking on Sergey Spivac in the main event. Let's talk about that. Cyril Gane's a minus 170 favorite. Sergey Spivac is a plus 145 underdog. Who do you have winning this fight? How do you see this fight going? What are some of your thoughts?
So, this fight, for me, I know that a lot of people, I see people saying that they think Gane's going to win. I see people saying Spivac will absolutely win. Um, and I keep going on the fence. I'm jumping back and forth because there's a lot of things I like about with Cyril. I think he's phenomenal on his feet. Obviously, when he's not on his feet, he gets demolished because he's. I mean, give him some slack. He did face the best fighter in the world.
Yeah, in the history of the
No.
planet, there's no one who can beat
So
him.
when people are bringing up that like no one's gonna beat John Jones, so he's gonna lose. It was he lost very quick in the first round, which is partial. That's part of the issue. But when you look at the Ngannou fight, he's getting tossed around on the ground by Ngannou, who's also hurt in that situation, and it's a little his ground game is not. You got to be worried about it.
I think you're giving him a little too much slack. Like, Ngannou's a horrible wrestler. Like,
Yeah,
granted,
I'm
he's in
saying
the
that's what I'm
UFC.
saying. Ngannou is not like he's not that type of guy. He's known for hitting you like a
No.
truck.
Yeah.
So when you're losing to him and on the ground, that's troublesome, especially when he's also injured. So the other portion that I'm concerned with is also the talks about how Khabib wanted Cyril Gane to come and train, and he had all these excuses as to why he wouldn't do that. So it also feels like he's not taking that seriously. He needs to get the best training he can on the ground so that he can prevent that type of damage. And everyone knows in UFC, if someone gets control of you on the ground, they have the advantage over most of the fight because the control time and the takedowns, they're just worth so much in this game.
Yeah.
So
And that's
with that
why.
being said, I think Spivac is going to end up winning this fight because he's phenomenal. Also, if he gets you in a grapple, if you watch him fighting Derek Lewis, he just immediately gets him onto the ground by tripping him. He's phenomenal at
Yeah.
tripping fighters. So if he's able to grab Cyril, they're going to the ground, and then the rest of the fight, either he's getting submitted or they're just going to be sitting there in control time. So
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think Spivak wins this one. I don't think it's very close. Um, and I don't think it goes the distance. I don't even know if it goes to round three, to be honest. I mean, 70% of Spivak's fights are over before the final round of the fight, third or fifth round, regardless.
the
40% of
average
Gane's fights. I mean,
Average
his,
fight time for Spivac is 8 minutes
yeah,
versus Cyril Gane's is 14.
yeah. I
So
mean, so Gane's going very far into the fight. He's relying on his technical striking, kind of
he's
like Sean O'Malley, Adesanya. I mean, he's relying on some of this, this kickboxing type style, which
he's
is,
phenomenal at it, but
yeah,
it's just not going to work against.
no,
Uh,
Spivak is a different animal. Spivak is bigger weight wise. Yeah, sure, he's a little shorter. Sure, he has a little bit less of a reach. He's going to come in, 15 pounds heavier than Gane. He's going to bulldoze him. He's going to take him down, and he's going to completely beat him up. Like I think if he gets him on the ground, which I'm betting he does. I took Spivak in this fight. Money wise, I bet on him. The plus 145 money line. I mean, I think he's going to win the fight. Like, I mean, that screams value to me. So he
yeah,
averages 5.05 takedowns in that average 8-minute fight
I was
span.
just about to say the same thing.
Like, he averages over 5 takedowns in less than 10 minutes of average fight time, less than 9 minutes. And 5 of his last 6 fights have been finished inside those 2 rounds with 3 knockouts and a submission.
Yeah,
Like, I mean, he won a fight as a decision, but I mean, it's not just he's taking guys down and ragdolling them and submitting them. He's taking them down. He's beating them up. He's knocking people out too. Like, I mean, he's got power. He's got size. He's got speed. He's got that bulldozer kind of fight style where he'll take you down. He'll trip you, like you said. He'll do whatever it takes to get you down. He's not just going to shoot a single leg. He's not just going to shoot a double leg. He's going to get you down no matter what. Like, he's
yeah,
in there.
he's got creative ways, and these guys are going into these fights and knowing each other's weaknesses off of film. So I mean, Spivak's going to know that Cyril
Yeah,
Gane sucks on the ground, so let's
yeah.
take him there.
And
So
and and 9 times out of 10, these kind of styles just don't match up well for the kickboxer. Like,
it doesn't.
for Sean O'Malley, Aljamain Sterling, for instance, I thought Aljo was going to win that fight because I thought Aljo was going to get him to the ground. I did not expect Sean O'Malley to have that kind of takedown defense and that wrestling. He was winning the wrestling exchanges with Aljo. That shocked me. Like, he was winning those wrestling exchanges, not preventing himself from going to the ground. Unless Cyril Gane, somehow overnight got as good at takedown defense as Sean O'Malley or Israel Adesanya, there's no way he can protect himself in this fight and keep himself
It,
from getting exposed.
Well, it's also harder because of the weight difference. If Spivak gets on you, he's just got so many different ways of getting you down on the ground,
Yeah,
and just having. I think it'll probably play out where Spivak, is kind of figuring out, the range, what he's throwing out, and then, figure out how to get right up on him and either do that or push him up against the cage so that he can go for his leg or however however he's going to do it, but he's going to take him down. Like that is the
That's a
game plan.
guarantee,
That
right?
is the game plan.
And the heavyweight division is so much different than all these other divisions. And this, like you said, he's so much bigger than Gane. Like, I mean, sure, Gane looks chiseled, right? Gane is like, he's chiseled. His muscles are popping out. Like, but I mean, but the reality is
15 pounds on him.
he's got 15 pounds on him, and Spivac is much stronger. So like, you can look all you want, but Spivac's got that raw strength. He's going to get him, and he's going to take him down, and he's going to beat him up. Like
Cyril Gane's quick on his feet for a 245, sure, but I mean, I don't think that cage is big enough to really.
No. You can dance around all you want, but at the end of the day,
I think Cyril Gane would need to actually have the most like perfect fight in order to pull out a win.
Yeah,
because he's so reliant on kicking someone in the stomach and whittling them down.
Yeah,
and requiring 15 minutes of fight time, and I just don't think you can go 15 minutes in the cage with Spivac and get away with that.
No, you have to he's going to either get finished, or he's going to have to hit him with the perfect shot and rock him or finish him or something. Like Sean O'Malley. Sean O'Malley hit Aljo with the perfect right hand, like that's pinpoint accuracy.
With Sean O'Malley, is like the only way he wins the fight, because most likely he's going to the ground with a superior wrestler. He's gonna need to knock him out, and that's exactly what he did.
Yeah, he went out there and did exactly what he needed to do.
I think that's the game plan for Cyril Gane. You got to come out with something. You got to hurt him quick.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going on the floor and you're going to lose points and time.
Yeah, which is hard because he's going to have to press into Spivac, right, to get him with these shots. But pressing into him is going to expose him.
That's not what you want to also
not
do. Cyril Gane wants to keep distance, but also press, which is not a good combination. So,
speaking of keeping distance, and you can't keep too much distance, like Rose Namajunas did in her last fight against Carla Esparza, which was the most mind-numbingly questionable thing I've ever seen.
That's the only fight that I've ever fell asleep to.
That fight was the worst fight I have ever seen. It maybe the worst fight in history of fighting. But this weekend
is the bounce back.
Rose Namajunas goes into Paris, fights, I'm going to butcher her name, Manon Fiorot, who is a good fighter at the 125-pound division. Rose is making her debut at 125 pounds. She's moving up from 115. But I think that fight was not on her against Carla. I think that her corner was giving her horrible advice. They were saying, you're doing good, you're winning, like, stay back, keep the distance. Like, they were telling her to have this boring fight, and they were giving her direction into doing this. She was listening to them blindly, and she lost the decision because of it. Like, I just don't think – I think people, because of that fight, has left such a sour taste in people's mouths. They forget who Thug Rose is. Like,
her nickname is Thug.
Yeah, her nickname is Thug Rose. Like, she is a electric, phenomenal women's fighter who, I mean, people forgot she beat Joanna Jędrzejczyk in her prime twice, and Zhang Weili in her prime twice. Like, she also beat Jessica Andrade. Like, she's beaten some of the best women's fighters, like, in the game. Like, Joanna Jędrzejczyk is probably the GOAT at that 115 pounds. Like, she was so good, and she beat her twice. Zhang Weili's the champ right now at 115. She beat her twice. She knocked her out with a leg kick once. Like, lights off. Like, she can end the fight. Not a lot of women fighters at 115, 125. Not a lot of female fighters in the UFC have that ability to just shut the lights off. Like, a lot of these times, these fighters, these fights, in these female divisions are going a lot longer than some of the men's fights, just because a lot of them don't have that knockout power, which is, it's nothing against them, but they have to be a lot more technical because of it. And, Rose just happens to have that rare combination of, precision and power. And I think people forget that because of the bad fight she had against Carla, but she's going to come in and she's the plus 155 underdog to the minus 180 favorite, Manon is. And she's going to, I think this fight, she's going to come in, she's going to piece her up. Like, she's going to,
I think she's in for a surprise.
Yeah, I think Manon is in for a surprise.
I think a lot of people are sleeping on Rose, and they're forgetting where she came from. I
Yeah.
think she'll have a bounce back. I don't think that Manon's going to do bad. I think it'll be a great fight,
Hmm.
and it'll probably be pretty close. But I do think Rose will come out. Maybe. I think it'll probably go to decision. I don't think there'll be a knockout, but Rose will get it.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's hard to call for. It's hard to envision a knockout happening. I mean, Manon is 5-0 since joining this UFC in 2021, right? She's got 2 knockouts. She's got 3 unanimous decisions. Like, I mean, she's bursted onto the scene. But Rose has been in the UFC for a long, long time. She's had 7 title fights and 4 wins in 7 title fights. Like, I mean, she has miles of experience ahead of Manon. Like, and she's going to come in with a good game plan to bounce back from that horrible performance. And she's going to do what she needs to do. And I see this fight, like you said, going to decision and it being, unanimous decision for Rose. But I can also see, Rose knocking her out if she catches her with, one of those head kicks, or she catches her with the right cross or something. I mean, she can do it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I believe that anything truly could happen in this fight.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, I think it'll go to decision. But absolutely, Rose could knock her out. I mean,
yeah, anything could happen. And like anything can happen. Speaking of that, this next fight, I'm kind of on the fence. It kind of almost anything can happen too. But I'm going to butcher this name again.
one.
Benoit Saint Denis versus Thiago Moises. Thiago Moises is plus 135. Saint Denis is minus 160. What are your thoughts on this fight? Because I have an opinion, and I think I have what I think is going to happen, but I don't know how confident I am in it.
Yeah. So let me pull up. So I have Saint Denis.
Mm-hmm.
I have him winning. Thiago went with Islam, right?
Yes. Yeah, he fought Islam.
Yeah. So the thing with that fight is he lasted 4 rounds in that fight, or what was it?
Yeah, I mean, he lasted a few rounds with him.
Yeah. So my thing with that though was that he was in like survival mode the entire time. Like he wasn't, in there at any point with he was just trying to live, like not get killed by Islam.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't close. So when it comes to that, and he's a great fighter. I think that it could go either way, but I think that Saint Denis has that grit and the ability to overcome Thiago and pull out with a win. But I mean, it's so close. But I got Dennis.
So I have Moises in this one. I think Moises is going to pull out the win. He's the better fighter on the ground is Saint Denis, right? He is no Islam. Like you said, he went several rounds with Islam. And yes, he was in survival mode and he was, trying to stay alive. But if he can stay alive for several rounds with Islam, I think he can easily, survive the ground and staying off the ground against this guy. And as terms of significant strikes, St. Denis throws more and lands more at 4.11, significant strikes landed per minute, and Moises 2.47. But Moises lands 39%. St. Denis lands 50% of his, but St. Denis absorbs 6.14 per minute, and Moises absorbs 3.9 per minute, and stops 41% of significant strikes. St. Denis does, and Moises stops 56% of significant strikes thrown. So I see this fight playing out a lot more on the feet, and I see Moises defending the strikes well, playing that part of his strengths well. St. Denis is going to throw a lot more strikes, but I think he might land a little bit more than Moises. But I think Moises is going to land bigger shots. I think he's going to be a lot more smarter in the way he approaches this fight. And I mean, Dennis is the more capable wrestler. I mean, he's got 3.8 takedowns. Score a takedown 3.8 times per 15 minutes, and he's getting his opponent to the mat 29% of his tries, defending 85% of the takedowns. But I mean, Moises is also taking down his opponents 41% of the times he's trying and defending 60%. So like they're relatively even in that category, like taking and defending takedowns. Like so, once they're on the ground, I think it's St. Denis who has the edge. But on the feet, I think Moises has the edge. And I don't know. I definitely see this fight going all the way. Probably a split decision. If I had to bet, it's probably going to be a split decision.
I think it'll be very close.
It's going to be a close fight.
Come down to who manages to land more shots on the feet. I mean, I agree. I don't think this is going to the floor. I think they're both. I think Moises has the ability to defend himself on the ground enough, and I think Dennis can't do enough in that aspect. I mean, if he wanted to take him to the ground just to get some points, sure, but I don't think that's going to be the game plan. I think the game plan is to just both of them are going to stand and brawl.
Yeah, I agree.
But it's definitely close. I could see myself picking Moises if I felt a little different tomorrow. But as of now, I got Dennis, and we'll agree to disagree, and we'll go.
We'll keep track. We'll keep a little tally. We'll see. So I don't know this next fight if we disagree or not. But you're talking about brawls, and Bogdan Guskov is bringing a brawl to this fight. Whether I'm going to butcher this name again, apologize. Volkan Ozdemir. I don't know how to say his name. So Ozdemir's the minus 180 favorite. Bogdan's the plus 155 favorite. This is Bogdan's debut in the UFC, but he's got some very, very, very interesting stats. 100% of his fights that he's won have been finishes. 90% of them are knockouts. Like, this dude has power. Like, he's knocking guys out like crazy. And Volkan started off hot in the UFC. He went 3-0, but then he fought Daniel Cormier, who, for the light heavyweight belt at the time. And since then, he's gone loss, win, loss, win, loss. Like, I mean, he's 3-5 in his last 8 fights since he fought for the belt. Like, most of these losses by Volkan too have gone the distance, and I just don't think he's fought somebody in his career who can just. I mean, yes, this is his debut fight, and I don't want to gas him up too much, right? But I don't think he's fought someone who can just touch him and turn his lights off like that. Like, and I think that's exactly what's going to happen. Is this fight is not going the distance. It maybe might not make it out of a round. Definitely not 2 rounds, but Bogdan's going to knock him out. And, that's just, or if he doesn't knock him out, he's going to rock him and take him to the ground and submit him. Like, I mean, I see a knockout happening though. Like, I just know that's what's going to happen. That's what I'm betting on. I put money on a Bogdan knockout. Like, it's coming. What do you think?
I think that it could happen, but I don't think it is.
Okay.
I think that Volkan is actually going to win.
Oh,
so
shoot.
We disagree on this too.
Okay.
I like it. I like to have the little differences. I just think that Volkan has the UFC experience. He's fought some absolutely phenomenal fighters, and like you said, he's been going to decision. Even though he's losing, he's going to decision on a lot of these fights, and so he knows how to fight with these guys.
Yeah.
And these are not just some chumps. I don't think Guskov has fought anyone super significant, and this is his debut. I think he's in for a different story. I definitely see that. I think this would probably, I could see it being close as a decision, and I'm just going to go ahead and say that Volkan's going to win a decision.
Okay. This is the biggest disagreement we had. The last one was kind of like we were both on the fence, but I'm like he's knocking him out, and you think it's going to decision. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out. We're going to have to watch the fights this weekend, and we're gonna have to keep a little tally, like I said, and see what happens. But I think he's coming with the power, and I think Volkan, yeah, he has the experience, but I just don't see a way that he can survive the power Bogdan has, unless Bogdan makes some huge mistake, which you can say that with every fighter, right? But I just don't see him. Like, I mean, he's a rookie, but I just see him get knocked out. And but this next fight, the last fight of the five main fights on the card, I'm a lot more closer to that. I don't really have as much of a this is my take. I'm closer to the kind of the Thiago Moises fight. I'm interested in what you think is going to happen.
Let me pull up the stats because this one was very
So Morgan. I'm going to butcher his name again. It's a French name. Charrier is a minus 340 favorite over Manolo Zaccini plus 270. So Zaccini has an inch height advantage, and they don't have the reach posted. I didn't see the reach. And Morgan's definitely the more decorated, polished fighter. He's proven to be much more durable. Manolo has 8 knockouts and 11 wins, 72.72% knockout rate. Like he swings with reckless abandon, and he kind of reminds me as like of Terrence McKinney almost, where his wins are going to be quick or his losses are going to take a while.
You're talking about the Morgan versus Manolo?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's a prelim.
Last I looked, that's the last one.
William Gomez and Giannis Gamori.
Did they switch it?
I think so. There's a lot of fights that changed.
Okay. When did they switch it?
I think today. Was it today? I think it was today.
That's why then.
Late changes. All
right. Well, let me hear what your thoughts. Did you do any research on that one?
That one I didn't get to.
Well, that's okay. But you did on Morgan.
Well, hold on. Let me do a little quick.
Okay.
Oh no! Oh, there's nothing on any of these on the UFC page. Okay.
This is okay. So I did research on when I looked before. I saw Morgan and Manolo were fighting.
Yeah. Well, I was trying to do some extra research, and then I did some, and then everything changed, and I was like, well, okay.
It's all right. They do that all the time with these Fight Night cards. I feel like they switch things a lot and stuff. And on Twitter and Instagram, I'm going to be the rest of this week. I'm going to be paying attention to it. I'm going to be tweeting out any changes like this with other fights and stuff. I'm going to be tweeting out our thoughts. And Instagram and Twitter at Kocsis Sports. Got a Discord server as well, so we'll post things in there. Jake is in the Discord server as he's going to be posting, if there's any updates and stuff like that to fights or what he thinks is going to happen, or if he changes his mind, we'll post stuff in there. So go ahead to Twitter or in the description below. I'll have everything linked. But back to Manolo versus Morgan.
I got their stats. So we got Manolo is 11-3. He's coming off of a TKO knee. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yep.
So he's like Terrence McKinney almost, like I was saying. Like he's going to finish his fight early if he wins, and if he loses, it's going to be a long fight for him. Like he's definitely the less polished fighter. Morgan was a Cage Warriors champion, and Cage Warriors champions in the UFC have a history of doing extremely well. Conor McGregor, Ian Gary, like some of these guys are, they come out of Cage Warriors. They're dudes. So, I think he's the favorite for a reason. He does have 8 losses via decision and 1 loss via heel hook for Morgan, which kind of makes me a little nervous, but it shows, like you said earlier with the decisions, that he's not getting finished. He's not getting knocked out. He's polished. He's got grit. He knows what it takes. He's more durable than Manolo. And Manolo's got one loss via decision, one via submission, and one via KO. So you don't know how he's going to lose if he loses. But Morgan's never been KO'd. He's been rocked one time that I could find on the internet in the third round of one of his fights, and he recovered. So never been knocked out, rocked one time in his career. And he's got good spacing, good boxing. I think he can avoid Manolo's power shots. And I think the only way Manolo can win this fight is if it's a very, very early KO. And if he can get on him and get a big shot on him and, throw one of those wild blows and knock him out, that's how he's going to win. But if he can't, then I think Morgan's going to, definitely beat him. And the second they go to the ground, Morgan's going to completely expose him. Like he is wrestling. The one submission that Manolo lost to, one of his 3 fights he lost to, I don't know if you saw it, but he got triangle choked, but he dove into the triangle choke. So like he was in this exchange and he like dove himself into this triangle choke. Like it wasn't even that the guy like set it up perfect. He just put himself into it and the guy's like, oh, okay. And then he submitted him. So like you can't do that against a polished fighter like Morgan. Like you have to, and the guy with that much experience in Cage Warriors, like, yes, he's making his UFC debut too. These guys both are, but you can't be making, foolish mistakes like that. And that might come to bite him.
Yeah, I agree with you. You said Morgan.
Yeah.
Morgan winning, Manolo. Yeah, I agree with that. All the points that you just hit. I think that he's just, from what I'm seeing, more seasoned. He has more grit, and the way that Manolo wins is getting the quick little knockout at the start. But I don't see that happening. Yeah,
I don't see it either. Morgan's got good spacing. He's got good boxing too, so I think he's going to be able to keep him away, piece him up a little bit, take him down, finish the job. So that's and we'll get to the card, the fight that they input into the main card on social media and Discord. We'll go in after the fact, after the podcast, and we'll do some more research on that
win streak.
What did you say?
Each are coming off a 5-win streak in that one.
Okay. Well, that one's going to be exciting then. So we're going to do some research on that after the podcast, and we're going to put out our thoughts and let you guys know what we think is going to happen. Just the UFC switches around the events. But to touch on a couple points of news for the UFC that I wanted to get to, Max Holloway, he's easily one of my favorite fighters ever. Like I love Max Holloway. The moment when he's fighting Cater and he's dodging the shots without looking, he's looking over at the booth. I'm the best boxer in the UFC, baby. Like that was so electric. Like he is just, if Volkanovski didn't exist, Max would be one of those fighters that we're talking about that has the belt. He has
so many wins.
He has 10 or 11 title defenses. Like he's knocking everyone out. Like he's running the division. Like he's going up to.
He's such a good fighter, and it's sad that I would not pick him against Volk.
No, no, and that's
how it's. I don't know. It's sad that that's his hurdle, but
his hurdle happens to be the best pound for pound, second best pound for pound fighter in the world right now. Can't put him in front of John Jones. We may disagree there, but I can't put anyone in front of John. I mean, he's so good. But Volk is so good, and he's one of the best featherweights of all time already. I mean, you have fighters like Jose Aldo and McGregor and Max Holloway, but I mean, he's 3-0 against Max, right? And if he wasn't 3-0 against Max already, if Max had one of those fights, which the first fight they had was very close, or it was the first or the second, I can't remember. It was very close, and some people think Max should have won that fight by decision, but he didn't. It's kind of like Volk and Islam. I think Volk won that fight easily. Islam could barely walk after that fight. He was being held up, and Volk had not a scratch on him. But the UFC loves control time, like we were talking about earlier. If you can get to the ground, you can get points. I think there's not really a clear... Actually, so there is a clear fight to make for Max, in my mind. In my opinion, there is. It's not in his division, Volk is not. I don't want to see that. I just don't want to see
I
it
don't
for
either.
Volk or for
I don't
Max.
either.
It doesn't. Neither one of them stand to gain anything.
That doesn't make sense to me.
Volk is going to run through him. Max. I mean, I don't see a world where Max wins, and it's not good for either fighter, right? And Dana White doesn't even think so. He said, earlier in a press conference, the other day, that it's not a good idea. He's not going to do it. I think that there's a fighter in the lightweight division that was talking about wanting to fight one more time before the year's over. And he's 2-0 against Max. And I think he could get an upset against this guy because he's coming off a big head kick knockout to Justin Gaethje. And Dustin Poirier and Max Holloway would be an absolute massive fight. In 2012, Dustin submitted him. I mean, that's a long time ago. In 2019, he lost unanimous decision, the interim lightweight championship. But I don't know. If the way Max is fighting, the way Dustin's fighting, if these guys get on the same card and they're fighting each other, easy headline for the UFC. That's an easy main event, 5 rounds. I mean, that's going to be an absolute war. That's almost any man's fight too. I mean, that would be a clash of titans. Dustin Poirier and Max Holloway. I mean, that would be more electric in my mind almost than Gaethje and Poirier. And I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
I 100% agree. Max Holloway, I think it's just the two personalities meshed together. You got Max Holloway, this, arguably the best boxer in the UFC, and then Dustin Poirier, who's, just fought for the BMF. He is a BMF. He is bad. So, I mean, getting those two to fight, and, it's something that you don't think about because, they're not in the same division right now. Them fighting would be absolutely electric.
And speaking of BMF, I mean, we can't forget, Max is a BMF too. I mean, he in 2018, he took, I mean, they never fought, right? But he took a short notice fight, a weight class up against Khabib in his prime. I mean, the doctors didn't like how he was cutting weight, but he said, yeah, and he didn't even ask for more money. He did it on contract money. He said, sure, you don't need to pay me an extra. I'll go fight this guy. What weight class? Oh, the one above mine? On how many days' notice? Short notice, ma? Yeah, sure, sounds good. And, I mean, he wasn't even in fight camp. He's like, yeah, I'll go get this guy. And that's Khabib in his prime. So, like, he's a BMF. Like, if he's not scared to fight Khabib in his prime, he's not scared to fight anybody. And I think Dustin Poirier and Max Holloway would be an absolutely electric card for the UFC to make. And I think the fans would love it. I think both of these guys in the press conferences would love it. I think it would be a complete smash.
That'll roll in money, and that'll get Dana's attention.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, 100%. And it gives Max a chance to continue showing. It gives Max a chance to move up weight class, insert himself into the conversation for the lightweight, contenders, because he's already the number one. He's a true definition of a number one contender in the featherweight division, right? So it gives him a chance to move up, insert himself in the lightweight conversation. It also gives Dustin Poirier a chance to bounce back from the Justin Gaethje knockout, insert himself back into the top couple fighter conversation. And speaking of big money the UFC could make, there's rumblings, nothing's official right now, there's rumblings that Ronda Rousey might come back, and she might be on the main event card for UFC 300 next year. So that would be crazy. So there's not much to talk about it right now, but it's something I wanted to bring up. Just keep in our minds, keep in the back of our heads. It might happen. And when it does, we'll let you guys know and we'll talk about it for sure. But if Ronda Rousey, I mean, there was a time in the UFC where Ronda Rousey was the highest paid fighter, not female fighter, fighter. Like, she was paid more than anybody on the roster because she was the most electric and she was bringing in the bucks. Like, she is a superstar. So she's like the female superstar version of Conor McGregor almost. And if she comes back, like, I don't know how good she's going to be after this long layoff, but I mean, I'm watching that fight and I'm paying attention. Like, that's going to be electric.
Oh, for sure.
And last bit of news, of course, nothing's official, but we're still waiting on McGregor Chandler news. And I mean, McGregor leaked that photo showing that he was going to be fighting in December. Dana hasn't
Did you
confirmed
see
it.
what was it? The UFC something with the UFC pass or something.
Yeah,
ESPN had some weird
yeah.
leak or
So
thing. I
Fight
don't really
Pass,
know.
I think it was Fight Pass had a glitch, and people were thinking that it was a leak, and it was like showing McGregor Chandler at the UFC event December 16th, and McGregor actually took a screenshot of the leak, or somebody sent it to him, and he posted it on his Instagram. So McGregor's adding fuel to this fire too, and I love Conor McGregor, but you can only take what he says online so seriously. You don't know what
Yeah,
the hell is real, what the hell is not real,
it's
right?
almost
I mean,
unlikely that it could get done that quick
yeah,
in
there.
finals.
I mean, he's going into fight camp right now. Like, he's getting ready. He's starting to post stuff, training more. Like, I mean, I don't know. I hope, but like this fight, McGregor's return. I mean, I know John Jones is the greatest of all time by a mile, and his return to the octagon was so hyped. But if Conor McGregor returned, like his return would be the greatest return almost in any sport. Like as far as just not like level of
He's
athlete, but just level of star. And his level of star returning to the UFC would be the biggest athletic return in athletics, like outside of maybe Michael Jordan.
yeah,
Like
I
it
agree.
would
That
be
it'll be
insane.
the most massive return for sure. However, if he loses, yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. I think if he wins,
I think a
right?
lot of hype will die if he loses.
If he loses, I think hype dies. But then I think he immediately fights Nate Diaz, and the trilogy hype between those guys returns. Right? They're both at the tail end of their career. If he beats Chandler, he shows he's still got it and he can still push for whatever he wants and he can contend. But if he loses, then him and Nate are both at the tail ends of their career. They're both not as good as they once were. They could fight each other, and you never know. You never know. I would have liked to see Connor and Gaethje though, and instead of Connor and Chandler, or Connor and Poirier again. I mean, I would have liked to see
Yep,
one of those fights. Chandler's just kind of a vanilla guy to me, in my opinion. He's electric,
I
he's
agree.
dynamic, he's
Yeah.
exciting to watch, but he's just not. He,
After like the tough and him just constantly trying he's not like he's a great guy, but after all this Conor McGregor stuff has been kind of I mean it felt like a year of just like waiting for something to happen between that, and
yeah,
it's just turned into feeling almost like Chandler is absolutely fanboying over getting to fight with Connor. It hasn't
yeah,
felt like this like fuel of like a feud between the two. But
yeah.
regardless, if the fight happens, it's going to be an absolutely phenomenal fight and
Oh
a
yeah,
war in the cage. But
yeah.
um,
Completely agreed.
I would
Completely
have
agreed.
loved to see him fight someone else for
Yeah.
sure.
Yep.
But he has to come and fight someone to get started. So
Yeah. He's got to fight someone, and Chandler is one of the most electric lightweights on the planet. So might not be one of the best, but he's definitely dynamic. And the last time we saw him, we might forget he was kicking off Tony Ferguson's face into another galaxy. So
watching that live was wild.
that was the most insane front kick knockout, like kick knockout I think I've ever seen. That was crazy. But so that concludes the news and notes and everything that we want to go over. To close out, we're going to do something interesting, and we're gonna do this. I think every week at the end of the podcast with either UFC or PGA events, or maybe both. If there's a weekend where there's two events, a PGA and a UFC event. So we're gonna do a snake fantasy draft of the fighters. So what we're going to do is we're going to exclude the fifth fight on the card because they swapped that fight. So I have a hard time seeing them swapping the first four fights. So we're going to pick fighters from the first four fights. And the scoring system we're going to use is FanDuel scoring. So in the scoring format is significant strikes is 0.6 points. A takedown is 6 points. A knockdown is 12 points. A first round win is 100 points. Second round win is 75 points. Third round, 50. Fourth round, 35. Fifth round, 25. And a decision win, unanimous or split, is 20. So, Jake, if you want to go ahead and start, you can get the first pick. And let me know who you want, and then I'll keep track of our rosters. I'll post them on Twitter, and then after the event, we'll add up.
I'll say this is kind of tough, based off the scoring, and all that. I could see a lot of these fights going a bunch of different directions. But that being said, I think for sure we're going to see takedowns in a more dominant fashion by Spivac, so I'll take him.
Yep, that was the fighter that I had definitely as the top guy. With that being said, this is hard now because my thought process is Spivac fight's not going to last 5 rounds, but it is a 5-round fight. Potential for more points. I think I'm definitely going to take Rose. I think Rose is going to get a bunch of significant strikes. I think she's going to come out. She's going to fight well. She's going to put up a bunch of points for me. So I'm definitely going to go ahead and grab her right off the board. It's a hard one now. I'm going to take...
You could hedge and just grab Manon, and you get all the points for that.
That's exactly what I was going to do, is I'm going to take Manon as well, because I think this fight is probably not going to be
I think
finished
one
early.
Of them, that fight is due for a lot of just points between the two.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of significant strikes on both sides. There's going to be maybe some takedowns in there. So I think the hedge... the stack, I guess, the single fight stack. So that's where I'm going to make all my bread, is in that one fight. So now you got 2 picks. So are you going to hedge and take Cyril, given that we think that Spivac's going to dominate him and take him down? That's the question.
No, I think I just go with the St. Denis and the Moises. I think I just take them.
That's good. That's good.
I'm going to do that. Screw it.
That's good, because that's going to be another close fight. And I'm going to take the fighter that I wanted to take at the 3 spot. I'm going to take Bogdan, but I knew that you weren't going to take him because you think that Volkan's going to win.
Why would I take him if I think Volkan? That would just completely negate everything I talked about.
Yeah, exactly. So I knew you weren't going to take him, so I was waiting. I was just trying to stack up those fighters. God, and I don't want to take Volkan. So
if you're planning for the knockout,
So I have the only guy left is gone. The only guy left is gone. I forgot we were doing the first 4 fights. So yeah, I get gone. I'm not very happy about that. Because I got to learn how to.
That'll go in post. That'll go in post.
Yeah. All right. So we were just finishing up the selections, right? You got Volkan to round it out. So to recap the teams, Jake's got Sergey. I followed that up with Rose and Manon. He followed that up with St. Denis and Moises. And then I ended with Guskov and Gane. And he got Volkan. So we will keep track of the score. We'll update them after all the fights are over. We'll let you guys know who won. Obviously, we'll talk about it next week. But yeah, so it was great. First podcast was awesome. And I'm looking forward to the next one. The socials and Discord and everything are going to be down in the description. Again, if you want to start streaming, you want to start creating, and you want to start using an easy, affordable platform, Streamlabs is the platform to use. Streamlabs Ultra, sign up in the link below. So thanks for joining, and I'll talk to you next week.